Hi, this is Al Crokenna, and I'm here with Matt Saltanovitz, Regional Director for Economic Development with the Northwest Indiana Forum. So, what were you going to say?
Nothing. No, go ahead.
Okay. So, could you tell us a little bit about where we are and why we're being interviewed right here in the Lake Business Center?
Okay, yeah, I chose this place. I'm also a Munster resident, like yourself, and the Lake Business Center here is one of the more recent economic development projects in Northwest Indiana. This is the old mattress factory. I want to say Simmons. It's right next door to the Pepsi plant, and if you can remember, for a time probably when you were a lot younger,
Okay.
and when I was a lot younger, forever, this was just an old factory, not really doing much. And a developer bought the land, bought the building, got some help from the town through TIF money, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And was able to redevelop the building, and with some business attraction efforts from a lot of economic development partners locally, we now have a lot of companies here, particularly that came over from the state of Illinois. We're right, you can see from right here, Mac Medical, Tech Air are both some examples of companies that decided that the economic climate in Indiana was a lot better, but they wanted to still keep their workforce in the Chicago area and keep those advantages of being by the nation's third largest economy. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, but let's start with you a little bit.
Okay, sure.
So you mentioned that you were born in Munster.
Correct.
You went to IU?
Yeah, IU Bloomington for my undergrad.
Got, what, in business? Or
A bachelor in journalism and with minors in business and Spanish.
So what made you want to, growing up, come and identify this in being your final, not resting place, but final place of settling down? What made you want to come back to Munster or Northwest Indiana and just kind of put down your roots here?
It wasn't by design, I will tell you that. I got out of college. My first job was at the newspaper in Anderson, Indiana, about a half hour outside of Indianapolis, kind of on the way to Muncie from Indianapolis. I had a couple of job offers. One was with the Times in Munster and one was with the paper in Aurora. I chose the Times because it was close to home and I thought I'd be able to stay with mom and dad for a while and save some money on rent. I thought, I'll live here a couple of years, and journalism, at least when you're young, is more of a, we'll say, transient, job. You tend to move around a lot as a young journalist. I didn't do that. I enjoyed working at the Times, and I met my wife there. My parents are here. We decided to have a kid after we got married, and so that's what kept me here. And I'll just go on to my next part of my story. Like I think most people, I kind of fell into economic development. I think a lot of people don't consider it as a career, and it just happened upon me.
So how did it happen upon you?
So at my most recent job when I was with the Times was being the business editor for about, we'll say 6 years. As being the business editor, covering, being in charge of the business news in the paper, I got to know the business community. I got involved in a couple of efforts of the Lake Area United Way. So I'm on the board of directors there. Just trying to make Northwest Indiana, my home, a better place. I was involved with a group of younger professionals, well, at least at the time. I'm 40 now, but young at the time, professionals, I guess we're all kind of young at heart, that saw, I don't know if you have been following the South Shore Line news.
Yeah.
So the South Shore extension into, the Munster Dyer area was kind of first proposed and needed some support from all the communities. I was part of a group of younger professionals that decided to try to rally around that, and we just hosted basically a rally just to show people that yes, there is support for the South Shore Rail extension, and economic development and the quality of life that comes with that. I also got involved with these same group of people and brought the first TEDx event or helped bring it. It was a group effort. I was one of many people. I brought that to Northwest Indiana with TEDx County Line Road. And through all of these dealings, I met a wonderful person, my now boss, the president and CEO of the Northwest Indiana Forum, Heather Ennis, who, in her infinite wisdom, decided to give me an opportunity to be the economic development director for the Northwest.
Journalism at this time.
Yeah, I was still the business editor at the time. I'm not going to lie, I was looking for a different thing that I could be doing. I just didn't have the passion that I once had for journalism, and I got more and more interested in the business world locally and economic development. I think I started teaching some adjunct classes at IU Northwest in economics, so it just started to get my juices flowing, I guess, of thinking about the business world in Northwest Indiana, economic development, and how I could be an active part rather than reactive at the times. Nothing against what I was doing. I just wanted to do something different.
So it was more of, I guess, instead of reporting and just being a witness to it, you want to be more of a participant.
Exactly. And this, I didn't know that a job like this existed, for a while I didn't. And even then, I didn't know that I would be, qualified to do it.
Right.
So I owe a lot to what I'm doing to Heather and her giving me that opportunity. So I'm forever grateful for that, and I hope I'm living up to snuff.
So when you say that, you didn't really even know what economic development was, and if you were even qualified, could you kind of explain what you view as economic development and what you kind of do with Northwest Indiana Forum?
Yeah, and that's a good way to explain to a lot of people what the organization does, because I think a lot of people in the business world locally know what our organization, who we are, but they don't exactly know who we are.
Right.
So just to break it down, economic development can go from a top end view to all the way down to your neighborhood. You could be doing economic development in your neighborhood. I mean, essentially, though, our organization is a regional in focus. We market we are a 7-county organization for Northwest Indiana: Lake, Porter, LaPorte, Newton, Jasper, Stark, and Pulaski counties. It's a pretty big area, but that's considered Northwest Indiana, at least in our organization. And the state's Department of Workforce Development mirrors that, where they break it up into sections. The IEDC, Indiana Economic Development Corporation, which acts as our Department of Commerce, also breaks it up in those regions. So we market Northwest Indiana, and we act as the voice of business locally, and we back, and we're a catalyst for initiatives that drive growth and promote economic development and create jobs and capital investment.
Okay. So when you say you're the voice of business, some people might understand economic development as something that's kind of, I don't know, just kind of hard to put your finger on exactly what is an economic development stance or program. And so when you say business, do you mean offering new jobs through job training, or?
Well, we work in host with a lot of partners organizations. So when you say training, for example, we work a lot with the Center of Workforce Innovations, which is our workforce partner, and they manage all the Work One locally. So There's a whole host of things that you could use to describe economic development. There's no easy answer for that. And a lot of the definitions you might see for economic development are so circular because they'll say the word economic development in it, or developing the economy. But essentially, you know, our organization as a membership organization, we act as the voice of business through what our membership decides.
Okay.
You know, we have members that are as large as BP and ArcelorMittal and NIPSCO, and as small as, you know, a 1 or 5 person firm.
Okay. So your organization tries to reach out to more of the business climate as opposed to, I don't know, because you mentioned the Indiana Economic Development Corporation.
Yes.
I would assume that's more of a governmental back.
They're exactly governmental back. They are part of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with them as well. So there's the state IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. There's the regional organization, the Northwest Indiana Forum, that when we work to market Northwest Indiana to businesses, brokers, site selector consultants, and a whole host of other people, just to promote what we have to offer here in Northwest Indiana. When companies are looking to locate anywhere, you know, when they're looking like, we need to be somewhere else. They aren't looking between, say, oh, should I be in Munster? Should I be in Valparaiso? Should I be in Portage? They're saying, should I be in Northwest Indiana? Should I be in Central Indiana? Should I be in Arkansas?
Okay.
So they pick by region, and then they drill down.
Okay.
And so that's where we come in, to market Northwest Indiana.
So this may be hard for people who aren't exactly.
Certainly, and I'm trying my best to
you're
explain
doing a
it.
great job, but you touched on regionalism. So I study a little bit of economic development, and in my studies, regionalism is moderately new.
Sure.
Of a concept to, instead of focusing on, like, say, Chicago, the city, or Munster, the city, just very small communities, you're focusing, with regionalism, you're focusing more on, like, Northwest Indiana and all of the communities that encompass it.
Right.
And so, you being the Regional Economic Development Chair for the region of Northwest Indiana, how do you get to orchestrate a team of rivals almost, of different communities and businesses who are all vying for different things? And how do you make them understand the importance of regionalism as opposed to just getting jobs from the neighboring county?
Right. That's a very good question, because, you know, naturally the organization that does economic development for, say, Lake County is going to focus on Lake County. The people that do the organization that does Lake County, or the city administration that does economic development for Hammond is going to be focused on Hammond. And even further out, you know, we have different organizations in Valparaiso, Portage, LaPorte, Michigan City, the county, Stark County, Pulaski County. These are all local economic development organizations that are, ideally, not ideally, at the end of the day, working to bring growth into their specific communities. But we've done, I think, a fantastic job of bringing everyone together, and a lot of, you know, being the voice of business is what the forum does, is bringing people together. So every month we have an economic development committee where our local economic development practitioners get together, and we discuss ways of marketing the region, we discuss best practices, and so forth. So they see the value of, you know, marketing ourselves as a whole. No offense to Michigan City, but they're probably gonna need a lot more traction marketing Northwest Indiana as a region than they would by themselves. And, you know, it's, you know, you could pool together, you know, budgets a little, you know, even. So you can, when you're marketing regionally, you're pooling together your, you know, this money, the regional money. You're pooling together our regional resources. When we go up to trade shows or conferences in Chicago or elsewhere, you know, we go as a group. There's a handful or more of us there, and showing the united front, showing Northwest Indiana is open for business, and we're all working together. I'm sitting here with the person from Michigan City, with local economic development practitioner from LaPorte, from Jasper County, and so on. So it really is that rising tide lifts all boats.
Okay. So, but have you ever come across a particular challenging community or business entity that really doesn't understand the value of regionalism, and how do you communicate to them that rising tide rises all boats?
I think I'd say it just like that. I mean, you're going to get, if you have a united front like that, the people will notice. I mean, when you talk to consultants, they're people too, and they can sense when there's discord in the community. And even if if we're talking regionalism, and say a consultant for a business, a site selector is looking to locate within, say they know they want to be in Northwest Indiana, and they've talked to a host of communities, and they see that one community in, I don't want to pick names because this isn't true, but say one community in Lake County is saying, yes, come here, Northwest Indiana is great. Someone in Porter County is saying, come here, yeah, but Northwest Indiana is great. But someone from another community says, oh, come here, but don't go to those two counties. They're garbage. They're going to sense that discord, and it's going to reflect bad on that community that says that. Okay. So that's.
So in the profession, it's understood that regionalism, as opposed to,
you're going to be more effective if we work together. Okay. United together, we're going to make more of a difference than we would one man for themselves. Okay. Or every man for themselves, so to speak. And we have all the local economic development organizations in the 7-county area working on our committee and being an active part. Okay. And attending these trade shows together and going to these site selector and broker visits, stuff like that. It really, I think, makes a difference, and people notice that. We have to contend with the rest of the world, but locally particularly, we have to contend against the rest of the Chicago area and the rest of the Midwest, or the state of Wisconsin. The Southeast Wisconsin and Kenosha is doing a bang-up job. They're on the other end of the Illinois border, so to speak, with Illinois not doing quite as well economically right now with the budget problems and so forth. We're seeing Indiana and Wisconsin, I'm sure, are seeing a lot of looks. So I think it behooves us to act together as one region.
So when you mention that businesses are starting to look to Northwest Indiana to be more of an appealing place to want to land their business, I imagine that's only one part of economic development when you're looking at businesses. So that'd be more of like attraction.
Sure.
What about strategies for retaining and even cultivating businesses that already are here or could exist?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Honestly, attraction is only one facet of economic development. I'm going to be honest, it's the sexy one. That's right. The one that's going to get the headlines. This new business is coming to Northwest Indiana, is bringing hundreds of jobs and billions in capital investment. But 80% of all economic growth is within your current existing businesses. So with our partner organizations, the Northwest Indiana Forum has a business retention and expansion program where every year we go out and we talk to our existing businesses. We talk and ask them, what are your challenges? Do you like doing business here? What would help you do better here?
And what are you finding in some of those surveys?
Our people are happy here, but I'm seeing a lot of workforce being their current issue. They either can't find qualified workers or they have trouble retaining them locally. So that's why it's so critical to get the right type of workers locally. And if you can't find workers locally, you're gonna move. and keeping them here. So keeping the young people like yourself, and hopefully you're considering moving back to Northwest Indiana after you graduate, and keeping these qualified workers locally, and keeping them trained with the right skills.
Okay. So as far as going to training them, making sure they have the right skills, what are you finding that Northwest Indiana is lacking, or something that we need to improve upon?
I think we have a good pipeline, and I'll give some kudos to the Center of Workforce Innovations on making workers ready for the jobs of today, but also for the jobs of the future. But we certainly could use some more people with even just basic, welding. Not basic. I don't say anything's basic. I can't weld. Welding skills, or manufacturing skills, high-tech industries. We could certainly use more of that. Those are we want to bring the higher wage jobs here, and traditionally those have been in industry or in high tech.
Okay.
So to just to give some context, because a lot of people may not know this. The Northwest Indiana Forum, we generally, when we're looking for business attraction, it's generally industrial manufacturing, distribution, logistics, IT and tech, and so forth. So those higher wage jobs that are, going to raise the average wage locally.
And so, what about Northwest Indiana makes those industries so appealing to want to attract?
Well,
is it just because of the wage, or is it because of our location, or?
Rephrase the question. So is it?
So advanced like manufacturing,
Sure.
Information technologies, logistics. Why are we aiming towards those?
Okay.
businesses?
Yeah, those are traditionally the higher wage jobs, as opposed to, say, retail.
Mm-hmm.
So at our level, we don't focus on attracting retail. So the idea is, if you attract these higher wage jobs, say IT or manufacturing, retail will follow, because when you have high wage workers, they need to spend their higher wages on something. And that's where you're going to see the development, like you see here with the new Starbucks, the new Meatheads, the new hotel that we're standing right in front of. I believe this had an open house last week.
Okay.
So, this is a new development.
And it's already bringing in people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so you expanded on attracting and just retaining people. But is there anything that the Northwest Indiana Forum does to actually cultivate human capital outside of like the technical skills that would go into the jobs that you're looking to attract, but actually like creating jobs through like
Entrepreneurs and startup.
Yeah.
We generally support startup entrepreneurship cultures. Our organization currently doesn't have any current programs for that, but we've been meeting a lot with the local players and trying to find out and kind of categorize what kind of climate we do have, because that's the kind of culture, the Silicon Valleys of the world, that those startups want to be around. They want to be in that culture. So co-working spaces, fiber access, those sorts of things are important to a community. And we're making some good strides. I think a good community that's doing well is Valparaiso. They have a co-working space. They're embarked on a fiber project through the city. So that's just one example. Hammond has a couple of co-working spaces, incubators. Those, I think, are important to a community.
Okay.
So yeah, that while we don't necessarily have a program right now, we fully support all those efforts. That's the third spoke, so to speak, on the wheel of economic development after the business attraction and the retention and expansion is the startup entrepreneurial phase.
So you mentioned earlier logistics and being so close to Chicago and with the rail, South Shore coming down. Where do you see Northwest Indiana's modes of transportation either evolving or expanding, or where do you see I guess, transportation for Northwest Indiana in the next like 10 years?
Okay, certainly. Well, let me first start with the landscape we have now. I think we have an amazing logistical advantage locally. So if you look at our access to rail, we have 3 Class 1 rail systems right within our 7-county area: Norfolk Southern, CN, CSX. And through the Chicago network that we have access to the rest of the Class 1 rail lines. And that doesn't even count the short line and regional carriers that we have locally. We have an international port locally. Who knew that Indiana, right? If you're not from Indiana, and especially if you're not from Northwest Indiana, you don't realize how, I believe, half of Indiana's border is water when you count the Ohio River.
Okay.
So we have an international port in portage at the Port of Indiana Burns Harbor. And the ports of Indiana carry more ocean-going cargo than any other U.S. port in the U.S. Great Lakes system. So, it's amazing that we have this multimodal advantage and access right there on the lakefront. We have, 4 U.S. highways going through us. I-65, 80, 94, 90. We have countless state roads and U.S. highways as well. So going forward, there's a lot of opportunities, especially around the I-65 corridor, I think. I think that's an untapped market as populations kind of move out of Chicago. If you're a region native, you've probably seen the development, or at least in my mind, it's taken a while. Not a while, but I've seen it through when I was in college, from US 41 down south, from Munster to Highland to Cherville, St. John, all that retail. So that just kind of shows how things are moving south. So I think as they make I-65 into 3 lanes down to the Roselawn-DeMott area, I think there's some good opportunities in the logistical sector for us to take advantage of our location as on a major U.S. interstate.
Okay. So going along with the interstate, while it would be good logistically in the long run for having more access to like a national network of roads, how do you see that affecting locals in the sense that maybe they may not have access to this road because of lack of access to cars, or do you see any exclusionary practice going on possibly?
I don't necessarily see an exclusionary, but I do think that brings up a tangential or maybe related point of making our communities more accessible through transportation, through walking and biking. I think the quality of life in each community would be infinitely better if we did everything we could to make our walkable cities. If you look at the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, NRPC, their 2040 plan, I believe it has a lot of regional centers, regional cores that have those amenities of walkable communities. That's a fantastic book. I don't know if you've ever read Walkable Cities.
Walkable Cities,
yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's fantastic. It just shows the economic development that could come with that sort of quality of place type of investment and infrastructure.
So we see that right here in Munster with the Centennial Village, more of a mixed-use new urban.
Exactly, and I think
do you see that's going to be more of the focus going forward, or do you think that's just?
I hope
nice
so.
project?
I hope so, because you'll see that also in Portage is trying to create kind of its own downtown. The way Portage developed, it never really had a city center. So they're partnering with Holiday Properties right now, and they're building kind of that same sort of idea of mixed use along and in the city. So that'll be an exciting development. When you see outsiders coming in to here, a lot of people see those urban centers like Crown Point, Valparaiso, or now even Whiting or Michigan City, of just attracting people. People want to be in a downtown and be by other people. I was just in New Orleans the past weekend. Oh, okay, yeah, it's fantastic. I'd never been there, but everyone wants to congregate around Jackson Park, I believe it's called, in the French Quarter. People are just there, walking around, people watching.
So when it comes to like bringing in new folks to the communities and wanting to attract new people, in staying along with the line of remaining inclusionary, how do you see opportunities, I guess, for bringing in new people while keeping it, I guess, affordable for the people who already live here? Because in my recent census, I think it was LaPorte who has a 17.9% poverty issue.
Okay.
Poverty rate. So while bringing in new people and increasing the land value and economic development is nice, how do you go about protecting the people who already live here, and what challenges do you see being presented to yourself?
Well, I think no city administration in their right mind would do anything to be exclusionary of any of their population. I mean, at the end of the day, these people still vote, right?
Right.
And that's kind of out of my league. I'm not a urban planner per se, but I would say, I mean, of course, you want to look at all your population and not to disenfranchise anyone, and make sure everyone has a place in the community that they can live. But along those lines, by attracting these higher wage jobs, I think maybe that's part of the answer. Maybe. Not every job you attract is going to be the $50,000 a year job or higher. Some of these jobs might be higher than minimum wage, but not so high that college-aged professional or college-educated professional would take it maybe.
Okay.
So maybe not the minimum wage right now is $7.25 an hour. Maybe getting into the $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour jobs are the type of jobs that's going to lift these people out of poverty.
Okay. So is there anything that the forum is doing right now to, I guess, kind of address the issue of poverty, or is it mostly just...
No, we focus a lot on business attraction, retention, and expansion. Make sure the companies we have are growing as well. If they have any challenges, making sure that there are ways to get around these challenges as far as working with the local community, or finding land to expand, for example, or finding workers to hire, and making sure they stay successful, because that's who we want to keep here, right? Our successful companies.
Kind of going along with the poverty line of thought, Northwest Indiana currently has 22 food deserts. So when it comes to attracting new businesses and wanting to make sure people are included in the communities, is the forum, do you see any opportunities while attracting, I don't know, new grocery stores or new food markets to these communities, or is that something that you're in your conversations with these business leaders?
Well, I'll say we tangentially work that way, because I think I referenced we don't work to attract retail. If retail came to me, if a grocery store came with me looking to locate in Northwest Indiana, I certainly would help them out, but I don't go out looking to attract grocery stores or other retail stores. So in that aspect, there isn't anything we're doing. But there's a host of potential business attraction opportunities we have here, and one of them is the food processing, manufacturing, distribution industry. We have dozens of food companies locally, so that in itself, while they're not directly feeding people, they're part of the process. They're the first step in the process of feeding people.
And isn't it in Northwest Indiana, foods and services are 3% lower for residents here? I read that somewhere on your website, that because of our proximity to all these logistical centers and distribution centers, we're able to get these goods for a little bit cheaper than they would if they would ship it out.
Yes, and not only that, we have we're within 1 day's drive to 80% of the population. So I think that's a pretty big advantage for any sort of company looking to distribute from the Midwest to the rest of the continental U.S. And I will say, you know, along those lines, I know that going back to NERPC, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's actually housed in the same building we are.
Oh, really?
I know they have someone working kind of on the food desert issue.
Okay.
So that'd be an interesting future interview, maybe.
Maybe. So I guess in conclusion, where do you see Northwest Indiana heading in the next 10 years, and how do you see yourself assisting along those lines?
Well, I think I want to see us, I'd like to see us raise the average wage by a bit. And
Would
I think
that be through job attraction or through laws?
no, just through not through law. Are you talking about like minimum wage and stuff?
Minimum wage,
Let's not get into that.
Okay.
Because that's and maybe a separate conversation we could talk about that. But by business attraction, business expansion, and raising the quality of life here and the quality of place here, you know, making these Northwest Indiana communities places that people want to live. And I mentioned it, I think previously. It's not just business attraction. It's not just retention and expansion. There's all this economic development is for a wheel. We'll say, just all these different spokes working together. You know, it takes workforce training. It takes quality of place. It takes urban planning and community planning. So all of these are part of the process. But I think we'll be very successful in the next 10 years. I think we have so much potential here with our business climate. I mean, we offer the best of both worlds. Your access to Chicago and the nation's third largest economy, the equivalent to the world's ninth largest economy. But we have Indiana's business climate, which is one of the most, I think, the stellar business climate, if not in the Midwest, but in the country. We were recently ranked by Forbes as the 8th best state to do business. I believe it was Chief Executive Magazine ranked us in the top 5. And so we consistently rank in the top 10. So I think, you know, people seeing that advantages of kind of the best of both worlds. Not only that, but we have access to one of the most beautiful bodies of water in the world. You know, fresh water in Lake Michigan. So if you've been there, it's pretty awesome. So there's nothing but great potential for Northwest Indiana. We keep working together, telling our message, telling our story, and working to attract businesses locally and offering enough product for them to locate. I don't want to divert your conclusion. I know you're trying to conclude this.
No, you're good.
But I wanted to bring up kind of a good problem to have, but it's still a problem.
Challenge.
A challenge, we'll say. Opportunity. We've told our story so well in Northwest Indiana that companies want to come here, but there's nowhere for them. Not nowhere, but there's fewer places for them to locate.
Like land-wise?
Building-wise.
Okay.
We have about 4 to 6% vacancy rate in the commercial market locally. I believe a normal market is twice that. So there's a shortage of buildings for companies that want to move to Northwest Indiana that can't find the commercial or industrial space. So you can look at it as a good opportunity, but it also means we need to start building some more speculative development to bring companies to our door and look and have something to look at. So if we keep doing our job and telling our story to not only the Chicago market, but the rest of the nation and the rest of the world, I think people will see the advantages of Northwest Indiana, and we're going to continue to be a thriving place.
Well, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.